down.
Welcome, everybody, to the August meeting of the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments. A fine morning it is. I think we have a quorum, don't we, Rob?
Do indeed.
Tapping some heads here. We do like to start with introductions around the table here. So, Commissioner, if you'd get us started with that, that would be wonderful.
Dennis Heisey, County Commissioner. That would be El Paso County.
Rob McDonald, PPACG, and for those trying to access our website, it is not working. We got hacked yesterday through one of our websites, and in an abundance of caution, our host took all our websites down, so we can find the malware wherever it may exist. So if you need an extra packet, let us know. We may go get a couple printed.
I see one request down
Yeah, I figured there would be some. I'll ask Jacqueline if we can get a few extra paper copies. It'll be also on screen. Our screen has not been hacked. Our screen is still readable.
I got
Morning,
some.
Mark Den Reader, Teller County
You should
Commissioner.
eat it. Jill Gabler, Colorado Springs City Council.
Daryl Glenn, El Paso County Commissioner.
Sally Clark, El Paso County Commissioner.
Morning, Brad McDonald from the Air Force Academy.
Doug Shess from Peterson Air Force Base.
Rod Chisholm, Fort Carson Deputy Garrison Commander.
Sharon Thompson, Fountain City Council.
Neil Levy, Mayor, Woodland Park.
Lori Worthy, Mayor, Green Mountain Falls.
Bill Murray, Colorado Springs City Council.
Andy Pico, Colorado Springs City Council.
And I'm Mark Snyder, Mayor, Manitou Springs. Welcome, everyone, again. We've done our introductions. Item 2 is the agenda approval. Does anybody have anything they'd like to add or amend to today's agenda? Staff, anything?
Nothing to add.
With that, is there a motion to approve the agenda as printed?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Thank you. Item 3 is public comment. And 3A, we have a couple of awards that we need to recognize. First, we have a Federal Highway Award. And Rob, I'll just turn that right over to you.
Sure. I may turn it over to Craig, but what we have on the table is just received yesterday a plaque, and there you go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Occasionally we get nominated by folks, whether they're consultants or local governments or CDOT or federal highways themselves. They're part of our process. A few years ago, I think, Craig, 2008, we got another award for federal highways, be second in the nation for planning. We got the first in the nation. This is another category of the same award cycle that we got. What's the best way to? Does it say? It doesn't say honorable mention or.
No, it doesn't. It just says presented to us for the Moving Forward Update 2013.
And Craig has some of the information has been embargoed, so we don't have an official statement yet, but I think we do now.
All right, the press release is on that table. That's for the best sustainability-related or multimodal plan. The 2008, we won the honorable mention, second place to Pittsburgh. This time we won the best MPO plan. Second place was Ohio State. Our plan was actually also just recognized as the best of the best. Of all the winners in all the categories, our 2012 plan was the best of the winning class. So.
And so I think, the embargo comes because I think the congressional offices like to get the word out first, and then they let us spread the word second. And so I think everything is out in the open now. I think truly a credit to transportation staff for that plan. We're doing the 2040 plan, and I'm not going to say the federal government's a little slow, but at least our 2040 plan is not done before they awarded us for the plan a couple years ago.
That the federal government's a little slow. So.
Thank you.
And
That's pretty good. It could be, but truly that was a great effort, and getting that recognition from the funders is always good. Just in case we could use that for leverage for additional funding.
And the time frame, it's they call it a biennial award, but this time frame for this award is January 1st, 2012 to December 31st, 2014, a 3-year period. So, which is why it's been almost 4 years since our adoption, but it's that 3-year period. And we adopted ours on January 12th. It can't be nominated until it's adopted. We adopted ours on the 12th of January 2012, so it's just about as old as you're going to find.
Well, for those of us that were hanging around during this period, we remember it was quite a process. We spent many meetings in discussing sustainability and other aspects of the plan, but it's really nice to be rewarded at the end of that process. And it really speaks well of our region. I mean, a lot of times people point to some of the issues and dysfunction that we may experience, but this is kind of a little haven of a success here. So congratulations to the board and to the staff for this recognition. It's really quite honored.
Yep. And, yeah, thanks to the board. You signed off on the plan, so you know an award-winning plan when you see one, I guess. Hope that carries through.
That's great. So I assume we'll put this up on the wall of fame over there?
We will. Yeah, we looked for a check in the box, but didn't see one.
Yeah.
Not quite like the Nobel Peace Prize.
Well, we also have another award, kind of a bittersweet recognition here today. And Rob, I'll go ahead and let you get.
Yeah, I was looking for Guy. I don't see him yet. Could we delay this just a bit?
We certainly can.
He's expected. He is probably helping a senior somewhere. Maybe across the street. Or,
But you know how short
get fun.
timers get. You know?
yeah, it's not quite banker's hours.
I'd be out fishing somewhere. But
He's due in. I know he did have an appointment this morning. It probably ran late.
okay. Well, no, as soon as you see him, and we'll get back on track.
Great,
with
thank
that.
you.
Thank you. So item 3B is topics not on the current agenda. Here's an opportunity from anybody from the public to speak to the board about an issue that's not on today's agenda. So Brian, you want to come on up and introduce yourself?
Morning. Thank you. Brian Vituli with the City of Colorado Springs Mountain Metro Transit. I just wanted to announce that on September 13th, we'll be implementing our fall service changes. These changes were made possible through additional RTA revenues. About $1.1 million are helping us implement some extended service on weekday evenings and Saturdays, and some other administrative changes. So look for those on Sunday, September 13th.
Great.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Brian about the changes coming up? Nope. Anybody else wish to speak on public comment? Now would be the time. Okay, well, I don't see anyone, so we can continue on with our agenda. Item 4 is the consent items, 2 today, the minutes from July 8th and the financial reports. We usually take these in one motion unless somebody wishes to pull one for extra consideration. Anybody wish to do so? Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Thank you. Okay, so we're already to item 5, reports, and we usually start with our CDOT monthly update, and I think we had some material in the packet, and maybe I don't know who's here from CDOT today.
I think Mark.
Oh, here he comes.
Lots of people.
Yeah, hide back in the corner over
He's got the
there,
most
huh?
paper in hand.
Yeah, good morning. Our internet's down too, so I printed out 30. I don't think we've got enough to go around, but we've got some information up on the screen, and thank you for doing that. I'm Mark Andrews, CDOT. We would like to get in a habit of introducing status on projects, upcoming projects every month, and so I want to walk through our list of projects. And you're getting a handout of 3 pages. There's a front and a back. The front would be a map of our current projects that are in construction, and then there's a description on the back again. And then the second sheet is our surface treatment list that we're going to be resurfacing in the next few years. And then the final list is other projects that are funded outside of surface treatment that are for fiscal year 16 and beyond. So I won't get into a lot of detail unless there's a request, but we'll just roll through the slides and I can quickly give an update. The first slide that you see there is our resurfacing well, our current project list. So that's 2015. So to summarize real quick, we have, actually, let me back up here, excuse me.
Mark,
So
did
what
your fiscal year 2016 started on July 1?
Correct. So we have the ability to spend that money now. In fact, with our rolling STIP, we actually have the ability to spend out in future years, and we're looking to accelerate some of these projects. So again, the first list is Region 2 projects in construction for calendar year 2015. So right now, what we have out on the back, you can see, is a running list. And the major projects would be the concrete repair project that is due to go out very soon. We expect it to go out this summer. Fillmore Interchange. We've got an overlay on 94 from Ellicott to El Paso County line on 94. And then on 24 at Cimarron, of course, we have the interchange. We've got some safety improvements out on State Highway 21 with the Excel decel lanes that are in construction right now. And then State Highway 21 at Old Ranch. And then we've got a major resurfacing down on South Powers and State Highway 16 ongoing. And then we've got a bridge repair maintenance project that's mainly a night project. Many don't know about that project because it's mainly a night project, but we're redecking all the concrete decks and repairing expansion devices. And then on State Highway 85, we have underway just this week a resurfacing from I-25 to B Street, essentially from Fountain up to B Street. And then we've got various signal improvements throughout. And then finally, the last project to go out this fall is the Powers Widening Project, which has had a lot of discussion about funding, and that will widen from Fountain up to Platte. So those are our current construction projects. Most projects are behind because of weather. However, they're looking at opportunities to accelerate, maybe even do some night work to try to get some of these projects wrapped up by this winter. So those are the ones that we currently have out. We have a lot of work in the Pikes Peak region. So it's a busy year for us. So that's a good thing. And next year it'll be a little less work, mainly Cimarron. We'll go on to the surface treatment projects. Again, this is the next 4 years of resurfacing. That includes some of the projects that are underway now. But mainly what we're looking at is resurfacing those areas that we've been having obviously a lot of potholing, a lot of maintenance. One area in particular is the I-25 area between South Nevada and Circle. That section hasn't been resurfaced since Cosmic. So we're looking at doing that section, including the MLK interchange. Also, we're looking at resurfacing on Nevada. That section from Lake up to I-25. We've got a section out on 24 East from Constitution to Garrett that it's westbound lanes. We're going to resurface that. And then everything in the green is currently underway, and I discussed those previously. We do have next year a resurfacing project through Manitou, number 16, and then north of Woodland Park. So that's our 4-year plan, if you will. What we'd like to do, again, is try to accelerate some of this work if we can. So we've got one project in the blue there in Manitou slated for next year. We'd like to get more out on the street next year. So if we can accelerate 1 or 2 of those, we'll try to do that. Next slide. So this is our ongoing list of projects outside of our resurfacing and then outside of our current construction program. And these projects are mainly funded through Faster Safety. So so we can go through the list. The first project out there on 24 is a PEL that we've currently chosen a consultant to do a planning and environmental linkage study that'll go from Powers out to Rama. Rama, thank you.
Okay, we know you're new.
No, that's good. I'm not that new, but I should know Rama. So, and then on top of that, we have another round of bridge preventative maintenance, structure repair going out, and that'll be various bridges. We're looking at the Rock Rimmon bridges in particular. We'd like to do some improvements there, improve the ride there at Rock Rimmon. Some ongoing efforts on Powers would be continual right-of-way preservation, where we need to purchase right-of-way in conjunction with development, ongoing development to preserve that future corridor for the freeway alternative. Of course, I-25 Cimarron will be still an active project. We do have the widening listed here from Fountain to Platte. Again, that one is going out this fall. I talked about the PEL study. We've got various, through our asset management program, we've got various critical culvert repairs that we'd like to make in the future years. There is leftover from the flood recovery effort. There still is some needed repair at a couple box culverts on I-25 at mile marker 144 and 165. Various guardrail improvements that we'd like to make, mainly on 115 and I-25, extending those guardrail where we have, where we've had some accidents, especially cross-median accidents. And then, of course, we've got additional improvements on I-25 and South Academy, where we'd like to increase the safety of that northbound on-ramp by extending it. And then we've got various signal improvements ongoing. And then at 21st and 31st Street, we'd like to do more than signal improvements. We'd like to look at some additional turn lanes, extending turn lanes, because we just don't have the storage capacity with those intersections. So in addition to the signal improvements, we'll look at improving those intersections. Highway 24, through Manitou, we've got a wildlife fence that we're planning to install because we've had a lot of accidents as a result of hits from wildlife. And I talked about the bridge preventative maintenance project, and again, that's a yearly project that we'll do. And then, again, the signal projects are still ongoing. So every year we get signal funding, and we'll go around the region and upgrade signals, especially like span wire on Powers. We want to continually upgrade those to mast arms. So that's a brief, quick summary of the projects that are ongoing and projects that are coming up.
You know, in Manitou Springs, we've actually, with our open space program, created a wildlife corridor, and if the wildlife would just go under the Williams Canyon Bridge, you would maybe be spared the expense of building a fence. But I guess that's beyond CDOT's capabilities to direct the wildlife.
There's wildlife in line up there, Mark.
Yeah.
Did you put the proper signage up? Do they know?
Any other questions?
Sally, please.
I have a couple, actually. First of all, I don't remember, and you may have sent this over email, but speaking kind of of Manitou, the expansion over Canyon Avenue, what's going on up there? Is that just redecking, or what's happening? It's close to Rainbow Falls, but not Rainbow Falls. It's right directly over Canyon.
Right. I'm glad you brought that up. That is part of our bridge preventative maintenance project.
Okay.
And again, the concern out there is the bumpy ride, and it's temporary. The ride is really to build up a ramp to be able to put some plates on where we can pull the plates off and access the expansion devices below at night. So it's a temporary situation. We'll remove that asphalt. We'll come back in and put a polyester concrete down, which is a long-term wearing surface. And then, again, we'll replace the expansion devices, which we're currently doing. But the concern has been a lot of jackhammering to remove that concrete for the expansion devices. And we're looking at opportunities to do as much as we can during the day. Unfortunately, we can't close during the peak hour a lot of those lanes because we'll just back up traffic. So there have been some complaints about the noise, and we've offered the residents in the area hotel stays up to a maximum amount, and we'll pay for that through the project as an impact. So several have taken up that offer. I think we've got 6 residents that have taken up that offer. So however, it's a night project. I've asked my staff to take a look to see if we can do some day work to minimize or accelerate the work. So we're wanting to get in and out as quick as we can. So it's
Okay, I just didn't know if something new had happened that you were working up there. I got a email from our favorite guy up there, the Bear Man.
Oh, yes.
Some of us know personally. That he was taking pictures. So I'm like, okay, I need to check with CDOT and find out what's going on. So, yeah. Then a couple of other questions. The Rainbow Falls Bridge, and I don't know if you were at the Rainbow Falls meeting this last week, but I missed it. Where are we in terms of getting that bridge replacement or the improvements done to that and the RFP going out?
Yeah, it's probably not on this list because it actually went to add, so it's a re-add.
Okay.
Because we had a shortfall in the budget. However, we looked at changing the scope to improve the capability of the contractors to do the work. I don't know a lot of the details, but I know the work was somewhat complex. The way we were asking the contractor to repair the bridge was difficult. And then there was a very short period of time with a very short season that we were asking the contractors to do. So we're reletting that project this fall. In fact, I think Dave Watt would like to, and I don't know if Dave is here, he can talk about it. He slipped in behind me.
Jumping up and
So I'm going to let him.
Got your back.
He's got my back. So I'm going to let him.
And just a
jump in
couple
here.
questions, because Mayor Worthy and I were up there a couple days ago, and I mean, obviously the bridge, you know, Mr. Mayor, too, that it's really, you know, deteriorating, obviously, but the decking I know that you've replaced, and we've had a lot of more water, but I don't know that it's created any more problems. My question is kind of what the timeline is, and then secondly, can we have some input on the design of the bridge? Because I think that will make some difference if we can sort of discourage the climbing on the bridge in the future for the graffiti problem that we're dealing with. I mean, it's pretty awful up there now. Not just the bridge, which that, you know, is easier to paint over, but they're destroying all the rock outcroppings as well.
Dave Watt with CDOT Region 2. I work for Mark Andrew. As Mark laid out, we are going to add this fall. This is my sheepish look. This will be the 4th time we've advertised this project, so it's got small age history to it. We've had some struggles. We're comfortable that we've allowed the contractor a little bit more speed, ability to not be so detailed in some of the deck removal that we're doing. We're removing the outer 8 feet on either side of the bridge deck and replacing that and the bridge rail, and then doing what's referred to as a Class 2 and 3 deck repair, which has been kind of the original scope within that remaining 24 feet, I believe. We're also we've got enough schedule where we can get out to add this fall and get the project complete and back open to traffic by Memorial Day has been our target. Mayor Snyder and I have talked about that a little bit. Like to get the highway back open by Memorial Day, but also like to allow the contractor to work uninhibited, so to speak, so we can get more speed, better bid prices. As far as allowing input on the design, we're leaving the design much as it is today, but we've got a bad deck that's deteriorating away, so this is more of a rehabilitation effort. And we've been in contact with the Rainbow Falls Coalition and about what we might be able to do over the years to try to look at dressing that up.
Well, and I'd like to continue that discussion, because I think it's a culture change, and I know, it's just, but it's gotten, it's always been bad, but as fast as we clean up the rocks there, and I'm talking about the natural rocks, we wouldn't tolerate it in Garden of the Gods or Red Rock Canyon, but we're tolerating it up in the Rainbow Falls Canyon, and that's just not okay. Any way we can reduce the amount and maybe even do an art project up there, I think would be maybe a good alternative to see what we can figure out that it creates a visual, historical nature that then discourages graffiti as more of an art project instead of a graffiti. Every, profanity that you can think of is up there now, so just about.
We also, Commissioner Clark, like to get together with you and some of your folks at Parks about coordinating this rehabilitation project as well as the recreational trail access project that's at the cusp of going forward.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Sally.
Sorry.
That's why we love you so much in Manitou, because you're always looking out for us. And you're
Even
right.
if it isn't unincorporated, so, it's right next to you all, and
Well,
it
you guys,
is.
you've done such a great job leading that effort to try and rehabilitate that area. And you're right, it's a cultural shift that's going to be needed, because half my residents still call it Graffiti Falls.
I know.
And, it's kind of been an
So does a
uneasy
Facebook
truth.
page.
An easy truth for many years where, the taggers and the like, have kind of had free reign up there and spare our town from that type of activity. But it's not acceptable. I really appreciate it. And you're right, the quality of the graffiti has really gone downhill. 10 years ago, there was actually some artistic quality
Yeah.
to it, and now it's just foul.
Yeah.
And so we're committed to working with you however we can in Manitou.
And it's all over the beautiful, little pathway that CDOT helped create as part of that project. It's all over. Although, at the very beginning, I think I have a picture of it that I took the other day. It says, "Welcome." So I guess if all of it said "Welcome" and we love Colorado, that might not be so bad, but.
But thank you again for looking out for that area. Dr. Null?
I decided to tell you about an incident, and I waited until it seemed appropriate. It seems right now. I live right across from the university, and Austin Bluffs Parkway dips down past the university, and there's a sound wall there, and it goes up. When that happened, I had two neighbors. One's gone to their maker, whoever that is, up or down. Another one walked over last week sometime. She had just raised hell because his first two houses are right behind a little street that goes up there, and Dan is right behind the sound. And she says, "Jim," she says, I don't know whose idea, now she's almost as old as me, or maybe older. I don't know whose idea that was. She said, but that's the best thing they ever did in this town, putting up that sound wall. And she was going to get me out of office. She was going to, all this stuff, and she didn't remember, I suppose, that she had been so hard on me. And I said, well, we just aim to please. And I'm glad you're pleased. I bit my tongue, though. The same person who had all the complaints the other way walked up, how many years later, and praises it. And I thought, well, one win. Anyway, you guys have tough jobs.
I did want to mention a couple projects that are not on the list, too. We've had some damage last spring with the flooding. On 24, Serpentine Drive wall, for example, the road is actually moving a little bit. We are monitoring that. We did request some money as part of that emergency declaration to repair that. In addition, the second Rainbow Falls, I call it, or many call it,
Right.
where we've got some erosion coming down the slope. We're looking at putting some money towards that. And then we had a wall failure up by the Montessori in the westbound lanes further up in the canyon, up the pass. So we're looking at maybe doing some additional improvements to assist that failure there. But it's holding. I mean, maintenance has gone in there and done some repairs. So in addition, one of the things I wanted to mention, we got the gate project done, and then also the 2 gauges and cameras in Williams and Waldo Canyon are functioning, but I understand there was, with this week's rain event, it was hard to get in and see those cameras and see those gauges because I think there were so many hits going on. So there may be some ongoing discussions about limited use during those period of times. I don't know, but essentially our maintenance folks couldn't get in and see those cameras, which is not a good thing. And I had a call from USGS that they said we're getting some interesting numbers here, and that was before the flooding in Williams Canyon, probably about 20 minutes before that. So that's the intent, is to be able to get in there and see that information before that flooding occurs. So we've got some more work to do on those as well, I think.
Well, thank you for that. We are going through a major comprehensive plan effort right now. It'll be about another year or so before we get any final results. But we're really looking at Serpentine in that whole area as a kind of a final flood mitigation opportunity before waters hit downtown Manitou. So we're looking forward to working with you on that. And if we can come up with a plan that we think accomplishes several goals, we'd love to get in early with you guys on that and make sure we're working in tandem.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Any other questions for Mark? Anybody?
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Sure, we could do it now or
Well, let's
during
go
my...
with military.
Yeah, and we can do it as my executive director's report.
Perfect.
Add it to that.
Well, moving on. Now, this is one change to our standing agenda. We have moved our item 5B, military installation reports, up in the meeting. I think, one, it was difficult when they were going towards the end of the meeting, when everybody's kind of moving on to their next appointment. And two, I think it shows how much we value our relationship with our military installations. So, not knowing if you have anything particular to report, I wanted to give you all the opportunity to fill us in on what's going on the bases and installations.
Thank you. Rod Chisholm again from Fort Carson. I think at our last meeting, July 8th, if I remember, the question came up towards the end, and we were just making the announcements on force structure changes in the Army. The Army, as a total Army, is going from 490,000 authorized active duty soldiers down to 450. And what was the question was, do we have any intel as to what the effect would be for Fort Carson? This is probably old news now. Been a number of articles in the paper, but we were really minimally affected by this last announcement. It was only 365 positions as we've shaken it out, and yet there were some installations named in the final press release that had as much as 55 to 6,000 soldiers being reduced, and we had 365, of which no single unit was being reduced. It was only just a scattering of headquarters authorizations and some of the different headquarter elements of Fort Carson. So General Gonzalez was very pleased with that, with the warning that 450 is where we are right now as an Army, but we may be asked after we're supposed to reach this goal by the end of fiscal year 2017, which is 30 September 2017. There may be another cut that would take the Army down to 420, and then that would be a little more concern. But for right now, it's a good news story for this area. And another good news story relating to the award that was mentioned at the very beginning of the meeting. I think the Colorado Springs, Pike Peaks area in general has been recognized a long time for its sustainability and energy and some of the innovative things that we do to preserve our conservation and the environment. And Fort Carson is receiving one of 14 federal entities receiving a Federal Energy Management Program Award down in Phoenix on Thursday, tomorrow. Garrison Commander's flying out this afternoon to go down there to be part of that. And then we also won the Secretary of the Army Award for all of the Army. So a federal award and the Army Award, which relates to the ethic that's in the whole region, just as the Council of Governments has been recognized for what it's been doing. That's all I have.
Well, thank you. Certainly Fort Carson has been an absolute leader in our region in sustainability efforts. As I've often said, though, we would love to have that military command structure where the general says, okay, we're going to do this, and 10,000 people get busy doing it.
He says jump, and all we say is how high.
But that is great. It's nice to see you're being recognized on a national level for your leadership in that area, so thank you.
I'd just like to introduce myself. I'm Doug Schess. Took command of the 21st Space Wing at Peterson 2 months ago today, so I still think of myself a little bit new, but long time Colorado Springs. This is our third time here in the area. We own a home in Briargate. We don't get to live in it, but we Briargate, and so my family is very happy to be back in Colorado Springs and be a part of a great community. So I just want to thank everyone for allowing us to be a part of this. Thanks for the efforts of CDOT and everyone for the powers widening. That is really going to help us in the morning, in the afternoon, getting into our west gate there. So appreciate that. A couple other things real quick. We did receive the Joint Land Use Study Scope Review and asked for some comments. We had to work through our JA to be able to, our JAG to provide those comments. We do have some, and so we're going to be presenting those to you here fairly shortly. But mostly just how can we help you and give you some information as we go through that. And then lastly, we're going to do a 21st Space Wing, Peterson Air Force Base State of the Wing address on the 17th of September at our club. You'll be getting invitations to that shortly, but just we're going to tell you where we're at on Peterson and the wing, and it'll be a great opportunity for everyone to be there. And I thank everyone that was there at the change of command that morning. I think I met a lot of you, and there was about 100 people I met, and so I appreciate that. And so thank you very much.
And welcome back.
Thanks.
Please, Dr. Null.
Another one of those historical flashes. I remember, and probably Sally does too, when we used to watch from City Council and watch the new houses being built. And the bases were the biggest drivers. You built our city. You just did. And we appreciated that at the time. And sometimes, because military had to be moved, they say, well, we loved it in Colorado Springs, but they don't realize the importance, both social and economical, of the presence of the military in their community. And that's why, from my observation point, our publicly elected officials have for years tried to be as supportive as possible, because they do appreciate that. And just wanted to tell you that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for the continued opportunity. Starting from General Johnson as our superintendent down, just a partnership with the community in all kinds of form is much appreciated. And so just a quick update on what's going on in the Air Force Academy. Our primary mission there is to develop leaders of character. We have about 1,100, 1,200 cadets that just were accepted into the cadet wing last week. Oh my goodness, their last 60 days has changed their lives forever. So, I'm sure some of you remember your basic experiences, lots of notes to serve, so thank you for that. So as we move forward, if you, first of all, another shout out to CDOT and the local community. If you noticed on the maps, there's not much construction that's being done in the I-25 corridor around the Air Force Academy, because that's already been accomplished. So we really appreciate that. So if you wouldn't mind driving past a few of the bumpy roads to get up to the nice roads and visit the academy, we'd appreciate that. Want to let folks know we're still in Force Protection Condition Bravo, but the Air Force Academy is open. So new meal formations, those kind of things, from time to time with cadets, or something that people can come and see. One of the other things is you're probably driving up I-25, you see another building that's rapidly coming to conclusion. That's called the Center for Character and Leadership Development. And the idea is, fundamentally, we as an Air Force Academy are trying to develop leaders of character, and we want that over the long haul to become the Air Force's center of excellence for leadership, and also to work in partnership with local and national community to have that be a place where all can learn about leadership and character. So that building is rapidly coming to completion, and that's something that folks can have an opportunity to see from the outside as you come and visit the academy. In terms of the first football game, that's always something of interest. We get to take on Morgan State in the first week of September. So information's out there along that line. And the last thing, just as Doug mentioned, thank you so much for the continued support as it relates to the Joint Land Use Study. We want to come alongside the community and support that in any way that we can. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And Amy, please.
Can I add something? It's a little bit military related. I'm Mark Volchev. I'm the chairman of the Military Affairs Council here in Colorado Springs. Ongoing for the last month and a half has been a program for the Air Force Space Command Community Support Award. So all the Air Force Space Command units, the major units, have been competing for that award. And that's taken a huge effort writing those packages, and I just want to express my appreciation to those of you that we were able to touch who provided information for that award. This is the community basically nominating itself. And if you haven't heard of the Air Force Space Command Community Support Award, that's okay. You're definitely going to hear more about it next year because this is our first year doing it. And so to think about all the different organizations that are here supporting the military is immense. And so we've had to reach out to a lot of folks to pull in that information. If you weren't left out intentionally, if you were supporting the military and we didn't approach you, we just probably didn't think of it or whatever. By the end of this month, Air Force Space Command will announce the winner. So it's Buckley, it's Vandenberg, it's Colorado Springs support to Peterson, it's Colorado Springs support to Schriever. It's out at Cocoa Beach and LA Air Force Station, et cetera, et cetera. So I want to say thank you to all of you, government officials that gave inputs, et cetera, for that award. And let's hope that Colorado Springs is a winner in the first annual Air Force Space Command Community Support Award.
Thank you.
For Colonel McDonald, it's taken me a while, but I finally figured out the true hierarchy in the Air Force.
I don't know where this is going, sir, but
Peterson will allow me to come on base through any gate where they have all of the general officers, but they make me drive most of the way to Monument and then have my car and myself searched before I can come on the Air Force Academy with the cadets. So I think that tells us where the real value is.
Ouch.
That's good, I think. He's trying to
It's just for a football game.
is that the what he said?
I think so.
Value the Air Force Academy
I think
brings
that's
to
what
the
he said.
community. I need my senior wing commander.
Any other questions or thoughts for our military folks? Well, thank you all very much. We'll have this as a standing item throughout this slot for the foreseeable future. Okay, so we are then to item 5C, Executive Director's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to continue our military theme. You heard about the JLUS, the Joint Land Use Study. That has been officially submitted as of yesterday. All the wonderful details and the scope of services has gone around the community, certainly to the installation. So it's not going to be a scope etched in stone. It'll ebb and flow based on information, and Colonel McDonald even this morning. We have some other considerations, so that'll be ongoing. The selection, the award decision is supposed to be Monday. And so they're going to expedite as fast as they can at Office of Economic Adjustment. Fortunately for us, we're dealing with the director, so we don't have to go through an extra layer. Their process is their project managers kind of debate projects. We get to skip that phase this time. So I've been working a lot doing that. That's in my report. I'll let the rest of the report stand because I know I want to. We skipped over the national award, and Guy is here. He's still here.
There he is. Up
You know, he can never blend into the crowd because you all know him. But we did postpone the national award. We want to talk about that. But this is also Guy's last meeting with us. And so I wanted to say a few words and allow the board to say a few words for Guy as he's leaving at the end of the month. He's not going to another job. He's actually retiring, which is a good thing. He may be a special consultant around the community, but let me first talk about the national award. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, not hitting it with the gavel.
Very careful.
But I think it's credit in part to Guy standing nationally. This is an award from the National Association of Area Agencies on Aging. N4A is on your agenda. Guy was persuaded to go to their national conference in Philadelphia sort of at the last minute, and I know some of the staff is in the room that helped get him there. He originally wasn't going to this conference, but you can see behind me, he did make it to the conference in Philadelphia, made I think, the last flight out to get to the conference. And the award on the table is really a testament to his national recognition of what we know he does around here for the three-county region for our area agency on aging. And so I think that's an amazing award to get. Nice capstone for a wonderful career that spanned 9 years as director, but it goes back quite a few years beyond that. But I think, as most of you know, Guy's all about service to the seniors, and how to get that done. Bend a state rule or two, work within the guidelines, but bottom line is to get the money out, have flexibility in getting the services delivered, and we get reimbursed too. We have to fill out the reports. We have to follow federal and state guidelines and something called Volume 10. If you don't know about it, you're lucky. It's really the state rules and regs on how we're supposed to operate, and our subcontractors as well. But I think some of the subcontractors and our partners are in the audience. They know how Guy operates, but really at the national level, state level. He also chaired the C4A, the Colorado version of Area Agencies on Aging. And so he chaired that 2 years, Guy? 3? Or life 4? All right. They finally have changed leadership there, but... Oh, I think he can hear. He'll be wandering up front. He has to pick up his award. Guy doesn't hide. He's really embedded in, as I said, his fingerprints are on everything from the national discussion of reauthorizing Older Americans Act. We've had some comments go to there. We've also had conversations at the state level. Guy's testified in front of committees. So really his career and his legacy has been whatever it takes at the federal, state, local level to get the services out the door, work with the RAC, work with our partners, all the other agencies, really for the betterment of all the seniors. So, Guy, thank you for everything you've done, seen and unseen. I think I've seen more than some of the board has done, but really just a tribute and a great capstone to get this national award. So thank you.
So you listen to Rob and you think I'd done a lot. But I started here as an adjunct part-time job sharing because I was a musician and a tennis player. My friend who I played tennis with, Larry Kaloran, was the retired head of the Social Security Administration. He was looking for a little part-time job, and he saw a job answering the phone here at the Area Agency on Aging, but it was full-time, and he wanted someone to share it with. And years later, after a lot of opportunity, this is where I've come to today. I've worked hard, but I've been surrounded by great people. The RAC, today's iteration, the previous iterations of the RAC, the board, other PPACG staff. The Area Agency on Aging staff has the state expert on Medicare and Medicaid. We have the leading ombudsman in the state. We have the leading caregiver program in the state. It's not because of me. It's because of the people who work here. The reason I got the award nationally was because of the efforts of the other AAA directors that I have had the extreme pleasure of working with during my years as a director. So I've worked hard, but really the credit goes to everyone involved. And I want to thank you for the opportunity and wish you every success.
If I may, Guy, every organization needs a conscience. And I've always found you to fill that role for us, because not only have you done excellent work, and you think about all the countless number of seniors and their families that you have really benefited over your time here, but, and I think as board members, sometimes you guys, staff does such a great job of presenting the materials, we tend to maybe sometimes gloss over it. And you've always taken it to that deeper level. I can remember, was it 6-8 months ago now, where you made us go through a very painful exercise in really making these tough decisions on what areas
Hurt
to
me more
fund.
than hurt you.
No, but I mean, I really appreciate that. It'd be all too easy, I think, just to, put a program together and get it approved. But you really made us think deeper about it, and that's just a perfect example of how I consider you to be one of the conscience of this organization, and you're going to be very much missed. And I have a friend who told me that, musicians and madams never retire. They just pass away eventually. So I'm assuming you're going to be sticking with your musical. You're a horn player, aren't you, or trombone?
I'm an oboe player.
Oboe player.
I was principal oboe in the Philharmonic for 32 years, and now I'm playing in the Steamboat Springs Symphony Orchestra.
Oh.
Things continue.
Good.
That's quite a commute.
Yeah.
It is, but it's only a few times a year, so it's just fun.
Well, thank you for everything you've done for us.
Thank you.
Anybody else had any thoughts they wanted to share, or I guess Sally?
I will. Guy, I think you've been great about speaking up for older Americans and trying to make sure that legislative policy is heard at both the state and the federal level. And I think that that's important that someone speaks for that group. We're all getting older, and I just recently lost my mother at 90. And I'll tell you what, it's even as a younger person trying to deal with that long distance, you really do count on those folks who are there in that community to help. And I know my husband's mother is also in that population where she's 89 and needing some additional assistance and trying to connect them with the right places and the right people. And sometimes they don't even know what they need. It takes somebody to say, you need this, because they're not used to asking for things, especially when you were born during and lived during the 1940s and World War II. They don't ask for those things. So having sort of the ombudsman here and having somebody to advocate on behalf of the seniors is really important. And thank you for the work that you've done. And we have benefited, and so have a lot of folks in our community. So thank you very much.
Well, we don't want you to leave without taking your award with you, so I don't have to worry about hitting with the gavel. Good luck. Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you. Do a photo? Yes. We have it on photo. Photo op.
It's not working.
Go ahead, you're good.
They got
Just get a couple quick ones.
so they shut them down.
It always works that way, doesn't it?
It's in the car, does it count?
Just so the little, move a little farther over there so the little circle isn't right above your head, Andy. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, thanks. So is it bad form to now tell us how the tough process of replacing Guy is going?
It's going well.
Good.
Let me leave it at that.
Good.
I'll have an announcement for your next meeting or before.
Thank you. Do you have more report?
That's it for my report.
Great. Thank you. Then we can jump right to 5D, the Transportation Advisory Committee, the TAC.
It's a good copy.
Hello, Jennifer.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Board of Directors. Jennifer Irvin, El Paso County, but for this item, I'm the TAC Chair. We had a long meeting at our last TAC meeting, which was on July 8th, approximately 3 hours, and the majority of its time was spent on our first item in regards to the TIP Amendment Number 2. We did unanimously approve that, but did have some final changes that had to occur between the TAC meeting and your board meeting, and I understand that those have been accomplished. And I'm glad to say that I think that we have a good and corrected tip moving forward. So CDOT was able to provide updated program totals for CMAQ and Metro, and we also did ask staff to add an item for the August agenda, for our agenda, to discuss some inflationary increases for some older projects that were not previously evaluated. That's kind of been an ongoing thing, and we wanted to make sure that we got the tip right so that we can go back and look at some of those. So probably an item for your next board meeting. And then item number 4, the Unified Work Program. We had a great presentation from Mr. Casper and received an update on that. There was a recommendation of approval with one opposing the motion, and the concern there was the ETIP. And then there was some further discussion after that motion and approval, recommendation approval of that. And staff did commit to bring the ETIP and back to the TAC for implementation, and Craig indicated that we would coordinate on that further. So, and subsequent to our meeting, we did get some additional information. So look forward to working with staff on the ETIP as that moves along. And then the other item that we made a recommendation for approval on was the 2017 to 2022 TIP program evaluation criteria. There was a lot of discussion in regards to this, and I think we have a recommendation of approval of 8 of the evaluation criteria. Part of the concern that was discussed at our meeting was in regards to some of the issues that we went through when we did the selection of the projects for the long-range transportation plan, and how that there was concern that some of those projects kind of were lumped together, and as a result of the criteria, there wasn't a huge differentiation in some of the scores of the projects. So that is why the committee recommended to eliminate some of those criteria, because they didn't really affect the scores and differentiate between some of the projects. So there was one person who opposed the motion, and that was because he did not like that the recommendation did not include the criteria for cost effectiveness and connectivity. He felt that that was an important criteria. So in regards to that, you did receive a motion for recommendation for approval of 8 of the criteria. And then the last item was just an informational item for our upcoming item next month for the Transportation Improvement Program project scoring. So we will be seeing that next month and be making a recommendation. Our next meeting is the 20th. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those now.
Well, I was kind of intrigued by the recommendations for changing the criteria. That is an action item here later on here, but the board here kind of had a pretty exhaustive process just last year to approve those. So I'm a little bit curious as to what prompted the desire to neck those down. I mean, I'd kind of like to knock a few of those out too, but I was sort of outvoted last year on those things. The point being that the board kind of already approved these pretty recently. So what was driving this?
As a result of the scoring that happened with that criteria for the projects that went into the long-range plan. And that was kind of the issue, is that there were a lot of criteria, and several of those criteria didn't have an effect on, or didn't really change, and staff can talk to this as well, didn't really change the project selection that much. And so what had happened is that a lot of that were grouped together, and there was some discussion that it might be better to spend more time and score fewer criteria better than have more criteria and not spend good time on that. So there was that discussion of there are some criteria that really didn't make a difference on the scores of these projects, and it was kind of, why are we spending time and effort on some of these criteria if they weren't really making an impact on how the selection of the projects were?
Well, thank you. That makes a fair amount of sense. But
sure.
Appreciate it.
Well, I have to second Councilman Pico on this. We did go through a pretty exhaustive process establishing these, and and I look at the ones that you guys, the 5 that you were not so enamored with, and I see some aspirational aspects of that, but I think that's a good thing, that, we're recognizing this, and particularly stormwater. I think anything that we can do that helps the stormwater efforts is important. And for years, I've been watching transportation funding. I don't want to call it mission creep, even at RTA. It seems like hardly any project comes forward that doesn't have a stormwater component. And, it seemed to me that, the first thing you do in a situation like we find our region in is staunch the bleeding, however you can. And so if we have the opportunity to have stormwater components, I think that there's value there. So I am a little concerned with your all's recommendation there, but we'll have an opportunity to discuss it soon.
Yeah, and I can address the stormwater one specifically, and that's actually one that came up in our discussion. The stormwater one, how it's evaluated, we have to do all of those improvements anyway, and that's a requirement for any project. So that's part of the issue, is that because we have to make those improvements, there are very few projects that had different scores on the stormwater. So that's a good example of that. On the transportation projects, because of the federal highway regulations and all the regulations for the local agency projects, we do have to include stormwater as a component. And most of those, people usually don't go above and beyond. So.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Ally, please.
Maybe I missed it when you were talking about this, but so remind me again which ones you eliminated or are recommending that we eliminate, Jennifer. Because I do too. I have concerns about eliminating that criteria, and I know we'll hear in a minute from the Community Advisory Committee as well as to how their thoughts are on this.
I've got them here.
Okay, thank you.
I was trying to find it on my backup, but I couldn't seem to.
It's on the later item, but
Okay.
it's cost effectiveness, system connectivity, adverse impact reduction, wildlife habitat, and stormwater. Those are the 5 recommended to be cut.
That be eliminated.
Correct.
Okay. Well, and I guess we'll talk about that later on then, but I do have some concerns about that.
Anybody else have any questions for our more than capable TAC chair?
Can I ask a question?
Please, sure.
Since you're kind of talking about why you believe that the TAC should eliminate these, can you speak to system connectivity, which just, I've seen the criteria for that, and it seems really just kind of cut and dry, black and white, and of course is extremely necessary when you talk about roads and all sorts of connectivity. So what's the rationale there?
I think that we were looking that was covered under another category, and it could be scored.
Which one?
When we get up, let's see, mobility improvement and congestion reduction, I believe, or system reliability. Thank you. The reliability, that was one of the things that we looked at as far as when points are given or evaluated, it could be under item number 6, the system reliability.
But it seems like the CAC came back and it really hit hard on that particular item, and PPACG is now recommending it be included.
Yeah, we recommended that the reliability be included and actually changed it
No, I mean the system
from,
connectivity.
Yeah. And there were some people on the committee that felt like system connectivity should be a separate item. There were some people who felt like it could, as we look at the specific scoring of these criteria, it could be included under reliability.
Okay,
so
thanks, Jennifer.
Any other questions for Jennifer? Anybody?
Thank you.
Thank the committee for all their work. I've been wanting to say this for a long time. Bob Baker, come on down.
It's Barker.
I know. Close enough.
Bob Baker, CAC. I think what you will see in your packet is why there is a citizen committee and why there is a technical committee. And we don't admit to being dumb and dumber, but, our input is, in fact, important. First of all, I'll go through the action items that we had at our meeting. The Transportation Improvement Program Amendment Number 2, the TIP amendment was presented comprehensively, was motioned for approval, and passed unanimously. Then we go to the fiscal year 2017-2019 Transportation Improvement Plan evaluation criteria. I'm going to read this because I really thought about what I was going to say relative to what was going on in the committee in the discussion. The CAC has substantial concerns as citizens for reducing the number of criteria as proposed by the TAC. Particular concern focused upon eliminating cost effectiveness, system connectivity, and stormwater. The millennial contingent on the committee, yes, had real strong concern for system connectivity, i.e., non-motorized access to the transportation system, and felt a definite emphasis was needed in that area for those who are, in fact, commuting to work on their bikes and stuff. Others were concerned that 2 of the 5 to be eliminated were in the top 5 in importance for scoring at the last evaluation, putting together the criteria. A majority said that we should deal with the process and don't eliminate the criteria. So this is citizen spoke, and I think that it was really a good discussion that we had at the meeting. A motion was made to approve the evaluation criteria as written, including all 13 items. The motion carried on a 17-3 majority vote. Now, of the 5 that we're talking about eliminating, 4 were in the top 8, okay? So I hear what Jennifer's saying, and I hear what the TAC is saying, that they can be amply covered in other areas in the process. But I think our committee was concerned that the emphasis might be removed from items that we considered to be important in the process. Items not requiring a vote that we discussed. Prior to the CAC meeting, Rob, Craig, and Scott conducted an overview of the TIP, including project selection, time span, federal and state requirements, and the many funding sources. And we really appreciate your being at that meeting and making that presentation to the group, because I think it is important that we gain in our understanding of the TIP process and its development, and I think we're getting there. We have a group of very capable individuals. Craig discussed the development of a new priority transportation priority list at the behest of the TAC, since the current list is outdated by the completion of a number of projects which we've all seen. Craig discussed the upcoming community responsibility of TIP weighting. And you know, as I've been on the CAC and gone through the process a number of times now, I think probably that weighting is one of the greatest responsibilities that we have as a citizens group, if not what the TAC goes through too. I mean, it's that leads to the scoring of projects, and that's a very important thing, and we feel a responsibility for that. We were also introduced slightly to a proposed additional step of pairwise comparison, and I think we all have an interest in that process, because maybe it would serve to distinguish some of the fuzziness that might be. It's going to be comparing two criteria and their weighting. I mean, it could be very helpful in the regard of what Jennifer was saying here earlier. There was a consensus among members to conduct the comparison prior to the weighting process. So that's all I have. Questions?
Betty? Well, no, and I appreciate the distinction. That's why I think having two committees, a technical and a citizen, is really so valuable, because it brings.
Hopefully, it adds to the confusion.
Well, but in the end, I think we would get a much better product for that.
Good.
And does anybody remember how many criteria we started with to get down to 13?
18.
18. Okay, so because I remember we did a similar process when we finalized the 13. Yeah, so thank you very much, Mr. Baker. And that takes us right to the RAC, the Regional Advisory Council.
Right.
Good morning. It's nice to see you this morning. I'm Joanne Ruth. I am the chairperson of the Regional Advisory Committee, and I would like to add, first of all, my congratulations and really the honor that I feel in having an opportunity to say thank you to Guy formally before you. Guy, you have been incredible in terms of a person that to work with as a professional, as a community leader, as a state leader. Sometimes he's very quiet when he comes back about what the state information, but it comes to us, and we have that richness. And I think what we saw, all of us collectively, saw with the Technical Review Subcommittee for our own Regional Advisory Committee, what we saw in that, the depth that you were introduced to, he really introduced that to our own Technical Review Committee. And he helped us to move to a much deeper level of our assessment, evaluation, communication, looking at the future, what are the needs to actually help our whole broad community, our 3 counties, of course. So Guy has been instrumental in that strength of our organization. And I just want to say publicly, thank you, Guy. We are going to miss him a lot, and I will always be delighted to know that he's fishing. And I'm also very happy to know that he's going to be in Steamboat Springs with the orchestra, the symphony orchestra there. So thank you for your help, your sincere kindness, and your friendship, Guy. Our meeting in July was up in Park County. I love it going to Park County. I think they had a huge thunderstorm around Tarryall last night. Is that Pajaro County people are not here, are they? Well,
That's just across county line into Park, so Tarryall is in Park.
Yeah, Tarryall is in Park, yeah.
Roads are washed out, couldn't get.
Pardon?
I'm sorry. The roads are probably washed out, they couldn't get here.
Yeah.
Just a joke.
No, I understand. There's, if I might digress just a moment, there's a beautiful sinkhole on Chestnut, and I almost also could not get here this morning. If I tried to go through that pothole, it wouldn't have worked.
Getting bigger.
Pardon?
It's getting bigger, actually.
It is getting bigger. It's very awesome. But our meeting, I digress. Our meeting at Park County was an excellent meeting. We appreciate being able to offer our information. Pamela had an excellent presentation for them in terms of the information and assistance. Kent talked in a very extensive way about the possibilities of how we as a community can promote caregiving, we're all involved, and how do we do that together? And how can we as individuals increase our caregiving skills, which means we really take care of all of us when we take care of our elders. There were as far as it was a light business meeting, but we just certainly enjoyed being in Teller County. We have a opportunity to look forward to a new executive director, and we're anticipating that and hoping that we will all be able to continue forward as we have in the past. So thank you. Are there questions?
Well, I just wanted to thank you for going up to Park County and interfacing with them. You know, they're a pretty independent-minded group of folks up there that kind of stand on their own, and sometimes I worry that they don't get as much attention as they deserve, and so I really appreciate y'all reaching out to them.
We have a very deep concern and value of our mountain and rural communities, and I just want to always emphasize that. I am a little Kansas girl. My grandparents were homesteaders in western Kansas, so I appreciate the outreaches and what it is, the value of that. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, anybody? Joanne. Finally, on our reports, the Arkansas, AFCURE, and is Jenny with us? Hi.
Hi. Here for your monthly nerdy, sciencey information.
Well, it's good. It's humbling to remind us that it's just when you start thinking you know something, that you guys come along and remind us that we really know nothing.
Put things up like that. I brought a little handout for you guys. And one of the first things that, I'm Jenny Johnson with Colorado Springs Utilities, and I work in our Environmental Services Department. And Colorado Springs Utilities is a member of AFCURE, and we have about 11 members, mostly wastewater dischargers, that have gotten together to collaborate on data collection and responding to state regulatory issues. So one of the major things we're working on right now is the next hearing, the regulatory hearing for Regulation 93, which is the 303D list, or the list of impaired segments. And the page that I handed out to you is just one of the pages from the regulation, which has this is the list of impaired segments throughout the state. So we're just a little piece of that, not the least important, but just a little piece of it. And so it lists by segment what those segments are impaired for, what parameters they're impaired for. The double underlining is something new that the state is proposing. And if there's anything crossed out, that means they're proposing to delete that. And the map is up there in case you want just something for reference. But at our last meeting, we looked at, we had just gotten this draft list. The hearing is in December, so we're going to be getting the actual data from the state and evaluating that. But there are some new proposals that are a little surprising to us. For example, on segment 1A, which is the upper part of Fountain Creek from Colorado Springs up to Woodland Park, they're proposing to put it on the monitoring and evaluation list, which doesn't mean it's impaired. It means there's some data that show that there's a concern. But the only data that they have for that segment is from that was taken following the fire, and it was also during a storm event. So a lot of these parameters, like iron and manganese and arsenic, are kind of in the dirt. So when you have a lot of dirt coming in the water, you're going to see high levels of these things. So we'll be getting together to look at the data, evaluate the data and all the different sources. We use USGS quite a bit to collect data for our purposes, and much of that will be what's included in the division's decision. So we'll be working together on this hearing. I thought it was interesting on the 7A, which is Pikeview Reservoir and the Willow Springs Ponds. They are proposing to remove those two ponds from the list, which were impaired for aquatic life use. And they were impaired because of the perk that was discharged to the groundwater.
Fish are now safe to eat, though.
I don't know. I'm not really sure what data they have to support that proposal, but we'll find out as soon as Rich gets the data. He's been bugging him for that, I hope. So.
Can you raise that up a little bit, or who's controlling this?
I don't know who is controlling it.
Thank you very much.
So, yeah, the different segments on this map are just in different colors. The light lavender is Upper Fountain Creek. The blue is the main stem of Lower Fountain Creek. All the red that's coming in, all the tributaries are segment 4. And that is part of another project that we're working on together, the resegmentation study. We're looking at, maybe making segment 4 dividing it up into to smaller pieces, since it's representative of many types of ecosystems, habitats, environments, geology. And then Monument Creek is I think that's purple, and that's segment 6. And it had been, the state is proposing to remove the listing for E. coli. However, we're working on with a grant to address sources of E. coli. There are still some locations in segment 6 that do have high E. coli, and we will probably propose that that rather than the entire segment being delisted, that those specific locations be listed as impaired for E. coli, because there still is a problem that exists. And since that's a recreational standard, we want to make sure that we're addressing the cause of that issue. So we are also working on, I mentioned the resegmentation study, and I brought this just to show you. I had the pleasure of going through many of the tributaries, like one by one, to the only data that I was looking for is like the size of the drainage. Sorry. And it was like really mind-numbing going through these one at a time. But I learned a lot about our watershed, which is pretty big, and we had a lot of little nooks and crannies of streams and tributaries that I really didn't know were there. Some really interesting variation in elevation on the west side and no elevation on the east side. We're also working together on a temperature study through the Colorado Monitoring Framework, which is sort of a statewide version of AFCURE, I guess I would say. And they are collecting some funding to work on evaluating data, temperature data from the various dischargers and streams. And the state is actually looking at the various types of problems that are occurring from discharges to streams. So they fall in different categories, different seasons. Is it upstream? Is there an impairment for temperature, or downstream? And we are also going to be working on comments for the Regulation 85. It's an issue scoping hearing that's in October, and Regulation 85 is the Nutrients Management Control Regulation, which imposes limitations on wastewater discharges. And we are likely going to propose that the time frame for implementation of that regulation be extended so that we can have more time to see the impact of the improvements in wastewater discharges in the streams. We think it's going to take longer than just the next 5 years. A lot of us are doing some pretty major construction at our facilities to address nutrients. And that's it. Our next meeting is September 1st, and it's going to be a data meeting, I think. We're going to spend a long time on data review. So I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. This is really important work, and I think we don't have to look very far south to see the mess down in Durango to realize. I had a question that maybe you could answer, or Rich, but I saw where the governor had released $500,000 towards that cleanup effort, but I didn't see where that money was coming from. Did anybody have any thought where that?
I'm not sure.
What pot of money that was being pulled from?
I don't know. I was wondering if Colorado gets to fine EPA for a violation of their discharge permit. That's what would happen to us. So I don't know. I can look into that and let you know.
I was just curious if you might have heard it in your circles.
It's a mess.
But yeah, that's awful.
It's very sad. Any other questions?
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you.
And Chris, I want to butcher your last name, Cole Clasher?
That's right.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have you on the agenda, but you sit here and you attend our meetings, and I know sometimes we have an agenda item, but I didn't know if you had any quick thoughts or updates you wanted to share on air quality.
I think Rich was going to give an update. I think Rich was going to give an update on a couple of environmental regs, and then I can chime in after that. So there has been some recent activity. You probably saw in the news that last week President Obama announced EPA's Clean Power Plan, setting carbon standards, emission targets for fossil fuel-fired power plants. So that is a process that we'll be very involved in, working through the public, of course, in a public stakeholder process to develop a plan to achieve those goals. But I don't want to steal Rich's thunder, so.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it under agenda item 7A.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Should look a little further down the agenda. But I just wanted you to be feeling left out or anything. Thank you. Okay, well, we can jump right into our action items then. And 6A is the fiscal year 16 through 19 TIP Amendment 2.
Good morning, everybody. Scott Phillips, PPACG. We are presenting you with the amendment number 2 for the 2016 through 2019 TIP. Incorporated in this amendment is additional funding that was provided by CDOT for the items that are presented on your memo, as well as an addition to the bridge program, which is adding approximately $18.2 million with multiple projects across throughout the region, bridge projects. In addition to that, Mountain Metro Transit requested 2 additions for additional funding, which was previously approved, for inflationary costs for projects on their Route 6 and also Route 12, which are pedestrian and transit accessibility improvements on those routes. Additionally, in this request, there are some other adjustments and modifications for several local projects that were referenced a little bit earlier with the presentation by the TAC chair. The CAC, the TAC, and also staff here at PPACG request your recommend approval and request your approval on this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Can we scroll it up? I have no idea.
Oh, are you flying blind over there? With,
Yeah. Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay. I know.
Yeah. What comes around goes around, huh?
I just want to move to approve item 6A.
Second.
So there's a motion to approve and seconded. Any further discussion? You have a chance to review?
Not yet.
Okay.
I think I turned right to it.
Well, I don't think we can ask you to vote on something until you at least had a chance to skim it and tip it.
This is not, I mean, I have skimmed it.
Okay.
But I'd like to review the skim. This is not taking those criteria out, correct?
No, it's not. This is the existing TIP, which was previously approved back in June.
And now that'll be the 2 more items. We'll be looking at the evaluation criteria. All right. So, everybody had a chance to be acquainted with the proposed TIP amendment number 2?
We're going to have Scott scroll down to the tip table. The tip table shows the before and after changes. For skimming purposes, that's probably the quickest document.
I guess let me get my glasses on so I could actually see where we need to, okay. You'll see the first of the new projects being introduced in the TIP that were provided, the information provided by CDOT. And again, that's approximately $18.2 million being added to our TIP for projects for years covering 2016 through 2019.
So I'm going to go ahead and call the question, since we have a motion and a second. Is there any final discussion or comments, questions for Scott, or not? Then all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Great, thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
And then we can jump on to item 6B, which is FY 16-17 Unified Planning Work Program.
Good morning, Craig Casper, Transportation Director of PPACG. The UPWP, Unified Planning Work Program, is one of 3 of the required documents that MPO has to produce to meet our federal, requirements, along with the TIP and the 20-year plan. The purpose of this is to coordinate the planning within the region, make sure that one entity is planning a road that another entity is not planning something different for. It also, however, serves as our scope of work. As part of the scope of work, you will see that we are starting to incorporate some of the new requirements from the Super Circular and MAP 21 that are coming through. The MAP 21 requirements, as an FYI, the General Accounting Office estimated that most TMAs, those are MPOs over 200,000, will need $400,000 a year extra to meet the MAP 21 requirements. The good news is they are giving us some of that federal money. It's not fully funded. And the nature of our planning cycle, we have a very circular cycle. So if you were to look back at the 2012-2013 UPWP, at the start of a planning cycle, TIP cycle, you would see that some of the activities are similar to what you in the 2012-2013 2-year program. So, are there any questions?
Anybody? Is there a motion concerning 6B?
Move to approve.
One's a motion, one's a second. We'll take those to be simultaneous motions.
Yeah.
Is there any further comment or discussion? And all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Thank you. Thank you. Great. And now we've come to item 6C, which is the 16-19 TIP evaluation criteria.
Good morning again. Scott Phillips, PPACG. This item is the request for review and approval for the evaluation criteria that is being proposed for the development of the 2017 through 22 TIP for the PPACG region. As you've previously heard earlier, by both our TAC chair and CAC chair, there are some various items that they kind of do not agree on. Ourselves, PPACG staff, we're recommending an approval of a hybrid approval list, our criteria, evaluation criteria list, which would change goal number 6 from redundancy, resiliency, and change that to reliability to better address the transportation dependability issues. And the scoring of that, the evaluation of that would be utilize the planning time index as its measurement tool. As a caveat, just for the board to also understand that as we develop the list, as we go forward through the application process, scoring, weighting, and et cetera, that the list that will be developed is a list that we are, again, going to be recommending to the board, but ultimately the board has the final say in the projects that will be added or not added to the TIP itself. So as we bring this information forward and as we move forward with the process, the board will have the final say in what will and what will not be incorporated into the TIP under a physically constrained environment. With that, we request that the board approve the hybrid list, staff does. Again, CAC would like to see it move forward as it was originally developed and provides that cohesion with the TIP or the RTP and also the TAC, which requested the elimination of the five various criterias that have also been stated in here. So staff recommends a hybrid mixture of that, and any questions that you have, we're here to answer.
So this change to number 6 that the TAC and staff are recommending.
Sure.
Reliability. We're not changing any of the text behind that. This is just a renaming of the title, or are we?
It would be. It's also an approach, and it was an approach that it was also for number 6 was an approach that was recommended to us and at the TAC itself. I think Craig might be able to provide a little additional information with regarding to this item too.
It is changing. Resiliency and redundancy is more about the ability to bounce back from a disaster, a storm, a sinkhole, a bridge washout. Reliability is more about the travel on a road being more consistent from day to day, so that you can plan your trip departure time better. So it is changing the question.
I have a question.
Please.
So, Craig, what I heard is it's less important to take care of what we have, and it's more important to create redundancy and add new roads. That's what I heard you say.
That it would be that would be an outcome of that change. Yes, it's an indirect outcome.
So shouldn't we be taking care of our current roads and making them more resilient to withstand such events?
That is, yeah. That the original 2040 plan criteria, was the purpose of that. Yes.
Please, Andy.
Yeah, I wouldn't have pulled that interpretation from the description here. It says projects that increase reliability. I'd say repaving what we have would be increasing reliability. So I'm a little confused by how you phrase
The planning time index that was recommended, that's what that is. It's the reliable travel. Reliability in the vernacular of transportation planning, reliability is your consistent departure time from day to day on a road that has varying degrees of congestion.
So it means that no matter what time of day you leave, you should be able to get to where you're going within about 15 minutes or
Well, within a
however
regular
long
time, it should be predictable time.
Right.
So.
strange.
I think we heard earlier that a sinkhole affected a travel time affecting the reliability, so I'm not quite sure how Jill got to her interpretation of what she heard.
Well,
Please.
No, I thought I was pretty clear. I mean, resiliency for me means that if we have an event like we had earlier this week, we won't have as many sinkholes, we won't have as many issues on our roads because we are taking really good care of the roads that we have. And reliability means we are building new surfaces and additional surfaces to ensure that as we grow, we aren't having any more congestion. We are continuing to be able to move from point A to point B in the same exact time. Those are the differences.
Resiliency, I'll use the sinkhole as an example because it's near me. In a resilience-focused effort, you would create a bigger, I just lost the word, not underpass for the water. The culvert, yeah. You'd create a bigger culvert. Water could go through there easier, and you'd also keep the road base in better state of repair. In a reliable system, you would have a way that when that went out, you could there'd be a way of getting to your destination at about the same travel time as you did even with or without that road.
I see.
So.
And redundancy, the other R word.
Is actually sort of a hybrid of both. It's creating so that you have more than you have more than one route or more than one mode you can take. So you can ride your bike. You can take the sit and trail instead of driving past that sinkhole, something like that.
Okay, please. Oh, sorry. Yes, Councilman.
Well, I'm sorry. Like all criteria, and I'll look at the Air Force, even though I wasn't an Air Force person. I would like to think of this as a check sheet, because it's an evaluation criteria. Would you rather have your aircraft redundant and resilient or reliable? And I'd like to think that the two terms, redundant and resilient, might be more functional as far as addressing an evaluation. It's like taking any check sheet and going down the right side of the aircraft and saying, well, the left hand looks the same way, therefore we shouldn't consider it. I would think that if we left it the way it was, it would be a more functional tool. Yes, it takes more time, and yes, it seems to be redundant, but it also is resilient over the long term as far as the fact that we had a chance to focus on these particular criteria. And I'd like my aircraft to be redundant and resilient, as well as reliable.
Amen.
Two wings?
Having flown an aircraft once or twice, and been in a situation of seeing the reliability side of it where one fan quit unexpectedly, I was rather glad to have the redundancy of having another one on the other wing. Another way to phrase this, so looking at our local thing, so State Highway 94 runs out to Schriever. So if I get the criteria right, if we build a toll road in parallel, that would help the redundancy and reliability. I'm not sure that that's necessarily how you want to do that.
It would help the reliability, but it would also help the, it wouldn't help resiliency. Resiliency, you'd want to,
Just redundancy and
just have redundancy.
reliability, yeah.
So I'm hearing some thought of maybe not adopting this change. And I think there's, Sally.
I don't see any problem with saying increasing system reliability, but I do think that we need to leave the resiliency and redundancy. I mean, I know that we've seen lots of areas where we've had washouts, and I'll specifically speak to some of our burn scar areas where they're dealing with a lot of erosion, and we don't want to just build it back to what we had before, because it's just going to happen again and again and again. So I think this is really important, and I want to say from a national level, yes, sometimes we pick on to these words, these sort of buzzwords, for lack of a better term, but resiliency is pretty big nationally. It's big with our state. We know that the state is working on a big resiliency plan, and I think that if we take it out, it probably could actually harm our ability to get some of our stuff done, or it gives us better standing to get more things done. So I would say on that item, I believe it's 6, where we're talking about increasing resiliency and redundancy of the transportation system. I mean, it's fine with me if we add the word reliability in there, but I want to keep the other components included.
Is there a way to do that, Craig?
Well,
Add a third R word in there?
Well, there is.
3 R's, yeah.
It may be, I guess, more appropriate to add the reliability to item 2 then, which is the congestion reduction, and make reliability the focus of that instead of, right now it's enhance emergency response and trial times on the priority corridors. Just make it system-wide, make the whole system more reliable, and add the reliability to item 2, congestion reduction, because those are more similar than the resiliency versus reliability.
So under that scenario, we would leave 6 as is and add a reliability component to number 2.
Correct.
And then can I ask another question about, remind me again where the connectivity comes into play and which number?
Connectivity is item 4, is number 4.
Okay, it includes that. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
I'm happy to make that motion.
Second.
Well,
Just to clarify. Just jump.
To clarify, we're moving the word reliability to number 2 and leaving 6 as is.
do we want to have 2 come back in a final form for next month, or is that going to put us behind our schedule, or?
I'm comfortable leaving it this way, but
And I appreciate the motion in the second. Did we want to take up the TAC recommendation of eliminating 5 goals, or 5 criteria, excuse me? Or any thought to, yes, please.
I would say no. We worked on that pretty extensively last year.
So then the motion would be to keep all 13 criteria with the change outlined, including reliability into criteria number 2. Is that correct summary? Any further comment? Then we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any audience?
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. Anybody in the audience like to speak to this issue? Or any other issue we've talked about?
Any other issue that we've already voted on.
We haven't written the minutes yet.
I'm leaving if they all start lining up.
And I apologize, I'll do better next time.
You go so fast.
All right, well, seeing nobody, then we can call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Rob. All right, now we can jump to information item 7A. And sorry, Rich, if I stole your thunder.
No, that's quite all right. You didn't steal all of it, so. Good morning, board members. Enclosed in your packet is a memo describing the 3 federal regulations that have the potential to impact our region. The Clean Power Plan rule, which you've probably heard about, was just released on August 3rd. The proposed ozone standards have not been released yet, but those are scheduled to be finalized and released by October 2015. And the waters of the U.S., which was released on May 27, 2015. These rules will become effective 60 days after they are published in the Federal Register. I was going to provide an overview first of the Clean Power Plan rule and the proposed ozone standards, and then to turn it over to Chris to go ahead and give a division perspective, and then after that discuss the waters of the U.S. The goal of the Clean Power Plan rule is to reduce carbon emissions. Nationwide, the Clean Power Plan rule seeks a 32% reduction. This was changed from a 30% reduction in the original proposal to a 32% reduction. The compliance period was also moved back from 2020 to 2022. Each state has its own emissions reduction goal, and each will have the flexibility in how each of the targets are reached. The number of compliance pathways that a state can go ahead and take was increased from 2 in the proposed rule to now there's 7 different pathways. There's a rate-based calculation that can be used and a mass-based calculation that can be used. The rate-based calculation is based upon the amount of carbon dioxide per megawatt hour, and the mass rate is the tons per carbon dioxide over a given period of time. The actual goal for the state of Colorado, as far as the rate-based, is 38%. States must go ahead and develop a draft-based plan by September 2016 or ask for an extension. And the EPA is looking for finalized plans by September 2008. As Chris mentioned, CDPHE will be taking the lead on this effort and getting stakeholders together to go ahead and start the work on developing that plan. Now I'll go ahead and briefly touch on the proposed ozone standards. I provided an update of the proposed ozone standards in December 2014. As I mentioned, this the rule right now is just in draft form. We did submit our comments and concerns to the EPA about the draft language, and it is scheduled to be finalized in October 2015. October 2015, I will also provide a update of the annual ozone concentrations for a region, and also talk more about the final rule, if it's actually released in October 2015, that is. These things, as you know, have a way of being delayed. As a heads up, though, the EPA is proposing to revise the primary and existing standard from a concentration of 0.075 parts per million to a level of either 0.065 or 0.070 parts per million. Just for a brief refresher, ozone is not emitted directly as a pollutant. It's kind of formed as a chemical reaction between hydrocarbons, VOCs, and nitrogen oxide. We have 2 monitoring stations in our region, one in Manitou Springs and the other at the U.S. Air Force Academy. Ozone concentrations are calculated by taking a 3-year average of the 4th highest concentration every year and comparing that to the actual standard. Right now, that's 0.075 parts per million. If you look at what the 3-year average would be for 2013 to 2015, and this is included in your memo under the implications sections of the proposed ozone standard. The 3-year average at the Air Force Academy would be 0.07 parts per million, and at Manitou Springs, 0.06 parts per million. So, if a standard was set at 0.070 parts per million, and these concentrations hold, we would be in attainment of a 0.070 parts per million standard. That's not to say that in the future that we will still be in attainment. I went ahead and took a look at what the concentrations were for 2012 and 2013, because when you do a 3-year average, it's an average of those 3-year concentrations. And we had pretty high 4th max concentrations in 2012 and 13. They're around 0.073, 0.072. So really, that 3-year average is being driven up by kind of that 1 year. So we've had really low concentrations last year and really low concentrations so far this year. So we'll kind of wait to see what the future holds. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Rich. So as Rich said, EPA did publish its Clean Power Plan. It's a very significant rule. It's also a very controversial rule. So you've got some people on one end of the political spectrum saying that EPA has overstepped its bounds and is regulating carbon in a way that Congress did not authorize it to do, and you have a number of states who are gearing up to challenge the rule in court. On the other end of the spectrum, you've got people who say that EPA has not gone far enough and that the rule should be more stringent and the target rate should be lower. Colorado's sort of in the middle. Colorado supports the plan. So Governor Hickenlooper has come out and said that we will prepare a plan and submit it to EPA with a strategy for how Colorado will attain its target rate. And so that will be done through the Air Quality Control Commission. I'm a member of the Air Pollution Control Division. We sort of work as staff to the commission. We'll be putting together a proposal through a public stakeholder process, working with the utilities, environmental groups, local governments, other interested parties, to try to come up with a strategy that makes sense, that's right for Colorado, and that allows us to get to target in a cost-effective way. Colorado has done a lot that puts us in a pretty good position to attain the standard. So in 2004, we adopted by popular vote, the state adopted a renewable energy standard. That's been modified a couple of times over the years, but it does have some targets in place for utilities, both Colorado Springs utilities and investor-owned utilities, as well as cooperatives, to generate certain percentages of their power from renewable sources like wind and solar by 2030. So that helps us to reduce the overall, fleet-wide carbon emissions. Another thing the state has done is to adopt the Clean Air, Clean Jobs Act, which calls for Excel and Black Hills to close a certain number of coal-fired power plants, replace them with natural gas generation. And that has multiple benefits. It reduces carbon emissions. It also reduces emissions of NOx that contribute to ozone. It reduces sulfur emissions. So that does have benefits across the state, and it will help us as we develop a plan for the new carbon standards. The rule came out last week. It's about 1,500 pages long, not counting the technical support documents. So we're still digesting it to see exactly what we're going to be required to do. But as Rich said, our statewide target is a 38% reduction in the rate of carbon emissions from coal and gas-fired plants.
From 2005?
From a 2012 baseline.
2012.
Good question. And that's 38% by 2030 is our final target. That rate is a little bit less stringent than what was proposed, although on the surface it might sound more stringent. So EPA had proposed a 35% reduction for Colorado, but they changed the way they calculate the baseline, or the starting point. And so even though our 38% reduction sounds tougher to meet, our final target is actually a little easier for the state to meet. So generally, I think we're confident. It will be a challenge. There's work to do. Don't get me wrong there, but I think the state is in a pretty good position to find a cost-effective way to attain that target. It will change the way the state generates electricity. So there are some options for how we could comply. The ones that EPA listed in its rule were redispatch of generation, so essentially use coal-fired power plants less and use natural gas or renewables more. So redispatch is one. Building new renewable capacity is another. We can also use energy efficiency measures. So at a coal plant, you can improve what they call the heat rate, but to make the plant run more efficiently and generate more power from the same amount of fuel. We can also use downstream energy efficiency measures, and this would be things like insulation or more efficient appliances or things that can have a direct benefit to people if you go into especially a low-income community and you offer to make their home more energy efficient, you can cut their electric bill and cut their heating bill. So that can have a benefit as well. Our timeline is, I think Rich said this already, we've got until the year 2018. We have that much time available to submit the plan to EPA. We have an interim compliance date of 2022. That gives us more time than what EPA had proposed. And this is something that we asked for. So the Colorado Public Utilities Commission, Department of Public Health and Environment, and the Colorado Energy Office submitted a joint comment letter to EPA last December, asking for more time to develop a plan, asking for more time to make the reductions, and asking for EPA to consider what Colorado has already done in terms of energy efficiency or renewables. And EPA seems to have responded. So we did get more time to prepare a plan, and we're getting more time to meet the interim goals. And I think our final target is a little more reasonable than what EPA had proposed. So we were encouraged to get that movement between EPA's initial proposal and what they had finalized. So certainly welcome everyone's participation as we go through this process. In the next few weeks, we will have a public meeting open to all comers to sort of kick off this process, and we'll have a series of smaller, more targeted meetings after that to meet with either the utilities separately or specific interest groups as the process unfolds.
It's just an interesting time to be in Colorado because we really have it all. Every energy source available can be found in Colorado. Solar, wind, hydro, oil, gas, coal, it's all here. And I think we're going to kind of be that breeding ground for how this is all going to come out in the future, I know Fountain Utility's been getting wind power for years, and I know El Paso County went through a very difficult process. In Manitou Springs, we're proud to have and I want to recognize our audience member, Mayor Pro Tem Corrine Toll, led our effort to make all of our municipal energy sourced from solar. And that's, I think we boasted we're the first community in the nation to make that claim. I haven't been able to confirm that, but we're very proud of that anyway. So. We'll hear from the chair of the Utilities Commission now. Andy, please.
So do you shut down at night?
Some only come out at night.
Some only come out at night. Well, I was just going to say, it is going to be challenging. I mean, Colorado generates 60% of its energy currently from coal plants. So to think that we're going to make those, challenges, it's going to be a very financial cost to them. Here at Colorado Springs Utilities, we're pretty well positioned to move forward because we've been putting the emission controls on. But the idea of decommissioning a plant is without a replacement, that's going to be a challenge.
I agree. It's a challenge.
Any other questions on that? And I have a quick question for you, Rich.
Oh,
So-
there's also nuclear, which the last I heard, we don't have one in Colorado, if I recall.
Those,
believe we do.
I do not believe, I think one of the changes in the final rule was that nuclear will not be considered in the mix as far as, I believe so. Yeah, I'll have to,
Nuclear is not one of the ones?
let me, energy efficiency and nuclear generation are no longer considered in the target setting. In the proposed clean power plant, savings from energy efficiency and at-risk and under construction nuclear generation are included in EPA's calculations of state rate and mass targets. In the final rule, neither efficiency nor nuclear generation are considered in the target setting. So that was a change that was made from the proposed to
That
the,
is a really,
to the
pardon my
final
expression,
one.
really dumb thing. Anyway.
I think I can shed a little light on what EPA is doing there. So they first looked at the existing generation capacity in every state, nationwide, and they developed a target for what they thought the final carbon emissions rate could be. And in their proposed rule, they were considering nuclear plants in that baseline. So they did not count the nuclear plants in the baseline. But you can still comply using nuclear power. So if a state has a nuclear power plant and they want to generate more electricity from that nuclear plant, of course, it's carbon-free, and that can be used as a tool to meet your target. So they're not saying that nuclear is irrelevant or wouldn't be considered at all. They're just saying they did not factor that into their calculations of what your target has to be. And it's the same with energy efficiency. And I think EPA did this to make their rule more legally defensible. But, without getting into the details there, we can, as a state, we can still use downstream energy efficiency, demand-side management, insulation-type programs as a compliance tool. That is certainly available to us. But that's one of the reasons why our target is a little less aggressive or less stringent, because EPA is not assuming that we will do that. So they didn't factor that energy efficiency into our target.
Thank you. Any final thoughts or comments? Thanks, both of you, for that report. Item 7B is the...
Oh, I thought you were done.
Waters. Yeah, let me go
Waters
over
discussion. I just,
briefly over the waters of the U.S. The final rule really divides the waters of the U.S. into three categories. The waters that are included in all instances, as you know, kind of these are classified as jurisdictional waters, and they're subject to the multiple and multitude of regulatory requirements. Waters that are excluded, these are traditionally referred to as non-jurisdictional. And waters that are subject to a case-by-case analysis to determine whether they will receive protection under the Clean Water Act or not. There's a good comparison that NACO did. I provided a link in the memo between the proposed rule and final rule. If you haven't taken a look at that spreadsheet, I would encourage you to. It kind of goes through each of the key terms and does a preliminary analysis. Really kind of the upshot of the rule is there's still a lot of unknown. The final rule itself tried to make a lot of clarifications as far as the number of instances that would be subject to case-by-case reviews, but in several instances, they just kind of made things more confusing. So there's still a lot of instances kind of where it's subject to kind of interpretation of kind of, for instance, what a stream bed is, what a high mark is, what a bank is. The rule expands the number of waters. It's estimated that are classified as waters of the U.S. by about 3 to 5%. It does set the parameters as to when a tributary should be included or not be included, but in those instances, it also has specific language as far as kind of the high water mark, the stream bed, which, you could ask, 5 hydrologists and they could all look at a stream and, potentially give you a different answer. So, like the Clean Power Plant final rule and this final rule, there's still a lot of pushback, and there's a lot of states are filing to go ahead and get the waters of the U.S. Rescinded, and I know there's a federal push to go ahead and put a lot of amendments and riders in some existing bills to try to overturn the waters of the U.S. Some additional changes in the final rule was that that the rule identifies 2 sets of waters for the purposes of conducting a case-specific exclusion. One of those is 5 specific subcategories. All those subcategories are actually outside Colorado. They are the Texas coastal prairie potholes, Carolina bays, and other areas outside of Colorado. Second are the waters located in a whole or in part within the 100-year floodplain. Those are other areas that's where a case-by-case review will be required. And it does add exclusions for other features, too, that were not previously excluded. With regards to stormwater, it made some clarifications regarding stormwater, but with regards to the interpretation of those exclusions, it's not exactly certain how they're going to go ahead and play it out. That is, some dams, Templeton Gap, for instance, might be subject. Retention ponds could be. So I wish I could stand here and give you a distinct answer as to far as what the implications would be from this rule, but a lot of it's just going to be wait and see.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There actually are 32 states right now that have filed lawsuits against WOTUS, most of them based on constitutionality. And I believe Colorado is one of them. I'll have to check. I'd like to get a copy of whatever, our state has provided. I know our AG, when John Suthers was Attorney General, wrote a letter of concern, but I didn't know where Cynthia Kaufman had stood with regard to this. The Army Corps actually has come out pretty bold against EPA on this issue because they feel like they didn't have an adequate seat at the table either, and they believe there's clarity needed in the rule. So still a lot of going back and forth. I think League of Cities is still on board with National Association of Counties, and a long list of supporters in opposition to how the EPA rolled this out. So I guess we're just kind of waiting to see what's happening. Congress did sort of try to stop it, but went through the Senate. It didn't. I mean, it didn't get the traction on both sides of the House and Senate, and so essentially the rule went forward. So I don't know at this point. Just to keep track of what's going on with it, but it will have a cost if it rolls out. Of course, we know that EPA is always reliable and a great partner. At least our La Plata County commissioners would certainly say that EPA has been less than helpful down there when it comes to the recent spill down into their waterways. So be careful when you point the finger because it might be back at you at some point. Anyway, I think that I appreciate, Rich, you're keeping track of all this, and if there's anything else we can do as individual boards sitting around this table, I think we need to know that, whether PPACG needs to intervene in any other way, but it's really an important issue. And so is the ozone, that ozone piece of it, too, is one of our top issues at the national level as well.
If we just had an in with the National Association of Counties. And I wanted to bring that up because I don't think we've had a chance to formally congratulate and recognize you for becoming the chair, I believe. President, thank you, of the National Association of Counties. That's a great honor, and you bring great honor to our region.
So if I'm not here, know that I'm traveling around the United States. Not that I don't love you here.
You'll do good work for them like you have for us, so congratulations again. Did you have a comment, Andy? Or?
Well, I'll second both your guys' comments, and also just add that besides waters of the United States, we probably need a waters of Colorado law to protect us from the EPA. But,
well, they need to put that finger in the dike, the hole that they made in the plug or whatever.
Finger in their chest.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I might, just one more comment. Just from a city perspective, those of you who are members of National League of Cities, they are under extreme pressure right now from the White House to backtrack on this initiative. So those of you municipal representatives here at this table need to really give some support to Clarence, your executive director, and your board at NLC, and the Conference of Mayors as well, because there's a lot of pressure in D.C. to go back the other direction, and we need to keep the cities and the counties and everybody on the same page on this one to make a difference.
Well said.
Thanks.
So looking at next item, 7B, is the draft 2040 plan. I know the board has been keeping up with their chapters and doing a little continual reading. November's not that far away. Really, it's September when we release it for public comment. And it's a pretty voluminous document, so if you haven't had a chance to visit with it, it might be a good time to start.
When our website comes back up, not if, when our website comes back up, all of the chapters except 3 are available. 3 plus the executive summary, those 4 are not on the web yet. The others are available for review, and look for the whole plan to be recommended for release for public comment next month.
Great.
Any other questions on this item?
Here, so thank you. And our last item would be the statewide stack. And I know Norm wouldn't be able to join us today. I think we went to the meeting, though.
He
Yeah,
did.
We were both there, too.
Oh,
so.
that's right. Okay.
Well, I'll just go through quickly.
Sure, go ahead.
The new deputy executive director of CDOT was there, stating that CDOT was going to be the best DOT in the country, which is much more inspiring than striving for mediocrity. There was an update on the new extension and reauthorization of MAP 21. Senate passed a 1,000-page bill. The House refused to take it up. The Senate's version was a 6-year bill with 3 years of funding. They haven't identified half of the funding. There was an update on Mustang. Ridership between Colorado Springs and Denver is much lower than expected right now. It may come back up. But ridership on I-70 is much higher than expected. I-70 project got an update. The project manager talked about post-tensioning cables that had snapped that are reinforcing the bridge. He's pointed out it as bad news. I tried to point out the good news is an interstate bridge at the time hadn't collapsed in 4 days, so the possibility of a interstate bridge collapsing was pretty small, but he didn't think it was funny. There was an update on the risk and resiliency presidential challenge, and the new Office of Risk and Resiliency Director was there to give a little bit of plug for that. And we got an update. We have our TIP. CDOT has their STIP. Well, at the federal level, there's something called FEMAS that does it nationwide. FEMAS is broken, and so it will be down from September 5th or September 25th to at least October 25th. They think they can only have it down a month
I'm not holding my breath. And as a result, there's going to be some issues with funding. Not that there isn't already with the expiration of MAP 21 funding, but there's going to be more issues than expected, so we got an update on that. We'll see what actually happens, how soon the feds are able to get their system back running. So that is a summary of the meeting. And Councilman Pico, did I miss anything?
That's the only thing I'd add. That was very good. That was a little more comprehensive than I had for the most part. But on the best CDOT, he was talking about people, technology, transportation, and trying to get DOT more into the information flow and take advantage of a lot more technology. One of the things that scared the daylights out of me was he's talking about using technology to shrink the lanes so you could put another lane in existing concrete. I drove a few of those lanes in Houston, and it was terrifying.
It would only be for cars that are remotely
Yeah,
piloted.
he was talking about remote cars, but then how many people are going to have the remote cars when they hit that? So, that's just kind of one thing. But the shift to technology and the shift to of CDOT trying to go into the moving information business was kind of notable. And then the only other comment I would have would be on the Mustang. I asked him a very pointed question about what was your load factors, and he didn't want to answer that.
There are 20 people round trip.
20 people round trip on 3 buses.
Whereas the I-70, there's 45 on 1 bus. So that's.
Yeah.
And having some conversations, it appears that most of the riders of Frex have moved to Denver, which is why the ridership is down.
Well, it's not set up to serve our community properly.
Right, it's not.
Yeah. It's hard to give a good, fair evaluation of it when the timing is so awful.
Yeah, and so we'll see in a couple of 6 months or so what the ridership looks like. So
Isn't that a good thing that they don't want to go to Denver? They get everything they need here?
Depends if the Renaissance Festival's operating.
We're going to get widening up farther north.
well, there's also, we put the statewide MPO meeting, if you're interested, but just I'll quickly go through that. We talked about Title VI. There's a bigger push from the federal level about Title VI environmental justice issues. We talked about we need to update our memorandum of agreement on how the MPOs and CDOT are going to work together. We talked about the tip-step amendment process and specifically how the system is going to be down and that we're only going to be getting 2 amendments from CDOT per year. And they're serious about that. You probably won't see any more amendment requests from CDOT. The downside is we're not going to have any information. That's why about what's going on in projects. We talked about the 2020 household survey and doing that, getting the funding set. In 2010, about every 8 to 10 years, MPOs need to do a new household survey to update the travel demand model. We partnered with the entire Front Range and CDOT to do the 2010. There's talk about doing it again. If we're round numbers, we're going to need about $1 million to do that partnership. That's what we did in 2010. We expect it to be about the same, so expect staff to come back and talk to you about Metro dollars off the top to fund that 2020 household survey. We talked about the MAP 21 performance measures, how it's technically expired, but we still don't have the performance measures that we have to meet. But we got an idea of what those are going to be. We talked about changing in socio-demographics and how the millennials are traveling different than their predecessors. We talked a little bit about self-driving cars and that technology. Specifically, for those of you who haven't reached that point in the plan, PPACG staff, we assumed that the penetration rate of the smart technology on vehicles and infrastructure would happen at about the same rate that cruise controls and anti-lock brakes happened, which is about 25 or 30 years from initial introduction to when it actually is, there's enough people using it to make a difference. So that puts it in the 2040-ish, 2045 ranges when we actually expect stuff to start happening. And we talked about IGAs and how to get projects through the CDOT's IGA process better. I volunteered our entities to be part of a test subject where there'd be one blanket IGA and then everything would just be an update to that because it's something I know Jennifer had talked about. So that is what happened at the statewide MPO meeting.
Thank you. Thorough report. Questions on that? Well, we're at the end of the meeting with member entity announcements. I did want to say that CML is having Senator Gardner up in a couple of weeks on the 25th to talk about transportation funding. I've been invited as the CML District 2 Chair this year. Thank you, Jan Martin, on your way out the door. And so I don't see any reason I can't wear two hats at something like that, so I'm going to try and get something out to you all, or at least an opportunity. If you have thoughts that you would like me to carry forward to Senator Gardner on transportation funding, I'd be very happy to do so. It's just kind of coming together yesterday. So I know some of you got to tour with Senator Gardner recently, and I'm looking forward to meeting him. Apparently he traversed through Manitou Springs, but
Quick tour for like an hour, and then he had to go to Pueblo, so.
okay.
Yeah, so we didn't have time to stop, so we had to.
That's okay, yes. Well, you got to break these new guys in, so it takes time.
We were hoping to take him down to show him the real flooding, but he had to head down to Pueblo that day.
But that's specifically set up for transportation funding. So if anybody has any thoughts, please send them to me, and I'll try and get something out, maybe a call for comments or input or something like that prior to the 25th, here later this week. And then this weekend is the 60th Ascent and Marathon up Pikes Peak, one of the iconic events. We've already turned over most of our town and public facilities to them, and they'll be having events at Nosh, I think, starting on Thursday and Friday down there near the Pioneers Museum. So it's a great event. And if you're not registered, it's probably too late, but you certainly come out and have breakfast and watch these people begin their trek up the mountain. So any other member entity announcements?
Maybe I missed it. Did we get a new transportation rep appointed by the governor yet? Well, I heard you mention Jan Martin, and she was one of the names that has applied, but we haven't heard yet. Is there anybody from CDOT here that would have any updates? So we are without representation at the state level right now on our, is that correct?
That is correct.
Correct. We discern that perhaps the governor is having a real difficult time making a final decision on that, because we put forth some really good candidates.
Okay.
That's
All
our
right.
story.
I thought maybe you
No,
knew
we-
something I didn't.
Rachel heard something today.
We'll let you know by email as soon as we hear.
Okay. Nothing yet.
Mark, the Seven Falls opens tomorrow?
Oh, yeah.
That's the big to-do in the restaurant that they built right below it, that Broadmoor did. And if you haven't had a chance, go out to Elegante. They have, I think, 350 original Hudson cars. It's really Elegante, down by Circle. At the hotel. I just ran into them by accident in Manitou. And I said, wow, I haven't seen the Hudson in years. He said, well, come down and see them all. They're all at Elegante.
there.
And they're from all over the United States, and these folks were from Canada who had come down here to go to this particular thing. And I saw a little blurb about it in the paper, but I didn't think anything about it. But if you've never seen
a lot
a
of
Hudson
Hudsons.
that actually runs, it's quite amazing. So, that's all.
Any other member entity announcements? Anything going on? Woodland Park or Green
We've got
Mountain
up in
Falls?
Teller County, we've got the Salute to Veterans Rally in Cripple Creek. About 15,000 people per day, Saturday and Sunday. A great tribute to those who have served, and some cool bikes.
Yeah,
Cool. A lot of Sturgis overflow you're expecting?
We are.
Post Sturgis?
Migration.
Yep.
Well, that's great. That's another great, busy weekend. So if there's nothing, please.
CDOT's going to start Monday, was it milling Highway 85, down by exit 128. So if you know anybody that lives down in the south end of town, for the next week, they might want to find another way to get to work.
Yes.
Redundancy.
Use a redundant.
The resilient one.
That's right.
Fortunately, that's me.
Okay. Yes, please, sir.
Update, we got word from our policy office. They know, I guess it's known who the commissioner is, but there's not an executive order signed. So it's not really known, and the actual.
A player to be named later?
So much CDOT drama.
So we have representation, we just don't know.
They who cannot be named.
All right, well, thank you
Just
for
don't
that non-update.
He or she that can't be named?
Here.
All right, is there any further business before the board? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you. Try and get you out a little earlier next month.
That's right, you're within your 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
You guys have a great day.
You too. Stayed the whole meeting. Woo-hoo.
11:30, I wish you on it.
Thank you.
Within 100 feet. Stay out of trouble?
You know, it's hard.
I know.
And the ozone issues or something like that.
Tyler was today. Where's Tyler?
Yes, sir.
Northeast. Northeast, relax.
No, on the east part of the country, they're maybe over with.
I think that's his hometown area.